That doesn't stop you from being yourselves, of course. Okay.
Yes, it
So it's
does.
being live streamed.
Totally does. But
Pretend that's not happening
I'm
at all.
buttoning up. I'm buttoning up.
Oh, no. I'm admitting everyone.
Or unbuttoning
everybody.
it. They said to be ourselves.
Absolutely.
Sorry, what?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to, and I can't believe it's almost the end of day one of Power Skills. My name is Rosalia Felice. I'm the manager at Career Advising and Transition Services at McGill School of Continuing Studies. My business card is this long, as you can imagine, with that title. I'm so happy to see you all here today. I'm sure I've seen you. I see some of the names. I've seen some of you in other sessions. I welcome you to this session, and I welcome you to the sessions that are going to that are going to be coming up in the next 3 days. I'm happy to introduce my colleague, Valerie.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to Power Skills.
Absolutely. Valerie and I will take turns asking our 4 wonderful panelists questions. But of course, we also rely on you to ask questions. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat. Also, you'll see this is going to be a very casual conversation. So you can also raise your hand, and if you want to speak, or if you really feel you need to speak up at a particular moment and you're brave, go ahead and speak up too. I think our speakers are all going to be, our panelists are all going to be ready for that. Before we get into that though, we're just going to play a little video, and it's a land acknowledgement video, or even if you're not brave, says Kit. Yes, thank you. Even if you're not brave, especially if you're not brave, I would say. So we'll just play this video and we'll be right back with you. Thank you, Valerie. And we were happy to see today at an earlier session when we played this, because we always encourage people to know or to think about the land they're on. And other people have put in the chat their Indigenous name for the land that they were on. But we find this video to be really meaningful. And if you were at this morning's opening session, we had Elder Edley talk about his experience. Actually, and before we went on, he was talking to us about his experience with the residential schools, and he's a survivor of residential schools. So we hope to have him back, by the way. But thank you so much. And usually, you know, Valerie and I would introduce the speakers, as we said, but we're going to ask them to introduce themselves. They can go in any order, and they can describe themselves or talk about themselves any way they would like. So please go ahead. I'm going to name the first person just so we get this going. And the first person on my screen is Leslie. So please, Leslie, go ahead.
it's like it used to be alphabetical. I was always the first. But hey, so my name's Leslie Axe. I'm the executive director of La Passerelle. La Passerelle is a not-for-profit career transition center and employment center, and we specialize in the 40 and 45 above job seekers. That being the most important or exciting part of my life is La Passerelle. What should I tell you? Tonight, I think it's okay if I tell you that I have a really big mouth. And I used to get in all sorts of trouble. I mellowed out with age a bit, but so hopefully tonight I'll remember some of the things I did in my youth. And that's it.
I'll go next. I missed your loudmouth, Leslie, from coming to your office and always leaving in stitches and laughing, and always been very interesting meetings. Hi, everyone. I see some familiar some faces, but mostly names, because I just see the list of names on the side. So super exciting. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. My name is Marina Bejanova. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I own a headhunting and HR consulting firm called Pronexia in Montreal. I was going to say here in Montreal, but right now at the moment I'm in Florida, unable to exit the country. That's a whole other story. And I also own a business that's called Brand of a Leader. It's a personal branding agency for entrepreneurs. So usually I'm the go-to person on anything that has to do with standing out, speaking up, finding your voice, and embracing your radical authenticity. And I will pass it on. We'll make it easy. I'll pass it on to Kit.
Thanks, Marina. And really nice to be here, everybody. Yeah, my name is Kit Mallow. I almost once had a phone number that was 514 Kit Mallow when I first moved to Montreal. It was like going to be an extra $20, and I was like, no, that's too much money. This is like in the early 2000s, and now I'm like, geez, why didn't I say yes? Although I think it would actually sound really obnoxious if you were like, call me 514 Kit Mallow. So I'm kind of glad that didn't work out. At any rate, I also have a big mouth. And similar to probably everybody else on this panel, the trajectory that my life has taken has been a series of journeys and stories and experiences that haven't been as linear, I think, as maybe sometimes we think we're supposed to take. So what I do now is because what I'm most passionate about is supporting the development of other people's gifts and for people to see their beauty. And that means at a deep level, people feeling a sense of belonging first and foremost to be able to experience that. And so how I do that now is through organizational consulting. I work in a field somewhat similar to probably some of what the other people here do, but I'm really, really focused on how organizations and individuals within them can feel really alive and connected and joyous, which I think means taking down colonialism, capitalism, and white supremacy. But anyway, that's my big mouth talking. I'll pass it to Guy.
Well, I'll keep it short. I'm like let's say a class clown, comedian type of deal, lightning rod. Everybody's an adult, you're a shit disturber. So that's pretty much what I do, right? So everywhere I've been or I will be, I always want to perform and do well, but what really gets me like happy is to see people smile, and I'm really happy now because I'm seeing some smiles. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you, all of you. And of course, these panelists were picked with love. And as you can see, they were picked for a reason. And that's because they're authentic to a fault. And that's why we had them here today. I respect them. I respect all of them for that. And when I met all of them for the first time, is the first thing that struck me. And I could say that in each individual 4 cases. And that, Valerie, do you want to go ahead with the first question? Do you have anything to add before we start?
No, it just listening to the introductions really did reinforce why they're the perfect quattro to be participating in this panel. So thank you all for your introductions. I think it's got us started on definitely the right foot. I do have a question for all of you. You all very unique individuals. You obviously live your truths. I'm curious to know, what is your why? Why have you chosen your particular field? Why are you the way that you are?
I'm going to go first just because I feel like all the other 3 panelists are really funny and I'm not. That's one of my insecurities, that I'm not funny at all. So because I'm feeling intimidated, I'm going to go first, and then you can all be loud mouths and big mouths and really funny with your answers. So my why is very clear. It's to help people, to inspire people to find their voice, scale its reach, and stand out. And the reason for that why is also quite clear and simple. I was born in the Soviet Union, so the ultimate, land of censorship and not having a voice, and also not standing out because everybody was expected and supposed to be the same, right? That's the whole premise of socialism, communism, everybody's the same. So there was no such thing as speaking up. There was no such thing as having a voice. There's no such thing as standing out. And so that really shaped me. And then when I came to Canada, I felt, oh my God, freedom. I can speak up. There's no censorship. I can stand out. And then I realized that I couldn't, because I could, but I couldn't. So I could by the Constitution, and I was allowed legally, unlike back at home. But then I realized that when you are an immigrant and when you're from Eastern Europe and you dress weird and you have the thickest accent on earth, which is what I had, to the point where I would say hello and people would ask me where I was from. And I just wanted to say, I'm from here, like I'm from here, from here. I'm not an immigrant, I'm from here. And so I realized that I didn't want to stand out anymore because that made me feel weird. And people would always say like, you're so interesting. But they didn't mean like, you're interesting. They meant like, interesting, or like Marina's so quirky, or like, And so I didn't want to stand out anymore. And I couldn't speak up. Like I could, but nobody wanted to listen to me because they couldn't understand what the hell I was saying. And nobody has the patience to listen to an immigrant who like can't pronounce most of the things. And so it took me a long time to find my voice, to accept being different. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, thank you, Rosalia. That's the biggest comment, just that I'm funny. I never get that one. But then I realized that even though we're living in North America where we can speak up and we can stand out, I noticed how many people self-censor, how many people will feel that they don't have enough to say, not good enough, who am I, who am this, like all those self-limiting beliefs of who am I and I'm not good enough. And usually people who are the loudest tend to be people who maybe could be the quietest, but that's another conversation. And so I made that my mission, to inspire people to find their voice and speak their truth. And even if it's hard for people to understand, like technically hard to understand because you are just in your own weird world and people don't understand you. But there's value in authenticity. So that's my why.
Thank you. She says she's not funny. I don't agree. I think that was a ploy to go first. Okay, who would like to go next?
I'll go, just because I'm worried about Kit and Guy now. So, and Marina, you kind of said it high already. All this thing about being funny. If you ask me what I'm about right now, in this part of my life and what I'm doing, I think it's all about bringing out the best in people. And I think Kit mentioned it about finding the beauty in people. I don't dare say that too often, but there's so many people that pass through our doors, and ages of gunk on them, like the schools, workplaces, they kind of put you down, and everything that makes us special and the gifts that we have are kind of like frowned upon, and kind of like it's almost as if it's a bad thing. So to have our participants come and then see them like slowly start to like take off all those ages of grime and start looking at themselves like, whoa, wait a minute, I got a gift. And then you can see their eyes light up a bit. That keeps me going. Valerie, the other question, I don't think I chose this. I think it chose me. I mean, I was minding my own business and then it came along, and then here I am at La Australia. So there's a lot of our participants are like that. It's, out of the blue, things happen. We'll talk about it later. Magic. I have a feeling that word's going to come up a bit tonight. Things happen. So just keep your eyes open and your eyes open to things. Next.
Yeah, I can really relate to that, Leslie. I really appreciate you talking about magic and just like things unfolding, because I think that some of the decisions that have meant the most to me have come from a state of not thinking through things very well. Like I remember when I was going to go to university and was going to go to Wilfrid Laurier for music, and then a friend of mine in the hallway said they were going to Guelph, and I went on a train the next day and visited Guelph and was like, and just walked around and was like, this feels like the place I need to go. And then I dropped out of university the year after, but ended up like 20, 30 years later, still have like the fundamental experiences that I had in terms of my own sense of the world were there, and the people that I still feel the most connected to were there. And so I do think that there's like a flow that life offers us that we often don't pay attention to. And I think it gets back to what Marina was talking about that sort of real pressure. And I think that it's one that I'm not saying, Marina, that you were capitulating to, because I don't think you did at all, but it's like that pressure to kind of belong to a society that I think has got a lot of like dis-ease, and so I think that there's something really, really important about bringing up those words that we don't always talk about that are so key to moving away from dis-ease, which are, magic, love, connection, community, being in, making choices with each other and supporting each other through choices that don't necessarily seem like the right choices or the obvious ones. But what Nia was saying in the chat around, everybody, it's okay to be awkward and different in 2021. I feel like we're finally at a point where collectively we're starting to have these conversations more. And that's where I think we need to shift in order to start to really heal from some of the societal ways in which that are not working, you know? So it's a bunch of words. There you go.
I would echo some of what's been said, and it's not so much a why, but it's often been like a why not, right? So if you, let's in 2021 put some perspective. There's a lot of inequality. There's a lot of things we can improve. There's a lot of, but I don't think I have to ask for a poll here to know who has electricity in their house and running water and access to a meal. And so we're all in a good place. Once you put that bar there and say, look, it's not that I want to do it my way, it's that I can. And I accept the fact that what can go so wrong that I can't survive what I just did as a trial, right? So you try something, you like it, you don't like it, you move on, you made connections, you progress, and I want to try something else. Why not? Let's go for that.
I think though, to add a bit to that and build also on what Kit was saying, but it does take thick skin, right? Because if we're saying, well, it's okay to be awkward in 2021 and be weird, but what does it mean it's okay? Like, yeah, it's okay. Nothing's going to happen to me if I am myself and I do whatever and like, right, live life authentically. But there's still a lot of bias out there, and there's a lot of judgment, and people do not hesitate to let you know when they believe that you are weird or awkward or anything, right? So, for example, I'm fairly outspoken on LinkedIn, but for those of you who follow me on LinkedIn, like there's nothing dramatic there that happens. I don't say anything really just so out of the ordinary, but I have been called so many names on LinkedIn: dumb, vain, loser, like all kinds of things, right? Just because, yeah, but it's not just a cookie cutter content, not specific. This wasn't 2021, this was 2019. I was giving a series of talks. I was doing a lot of public speaking in person at the time. I miss it. Can the next power skills be in person? Maybe. But I was in this period of my life where I was obsessed with wearing toques, like obsessed. I wore them all the time, like in the office, like coming home, I sometimes would be like, it's bedtime, I'm still in a toque, like really weird. But I started getting feedback from event organizers saying, you know, we get like mixed feedback from our attendees. Like they're saying they're really surprised that you were a great speaker and that you had something interesting to say and you were intelligent because of how you looked. And I started getting that. So yes, of course you can say, well, too bad, so sad, don't invite me next time, or invite me because I still delivered good content, but it does take thick skin. So when we're telling everybody, you know, be yourself, embrace yourself, yes, but it takes a lot of self-awareness, because first of all, well, who am I really? And then number two, you do have to have thick skin, because judgment is there and people will make sure to inform you of your weirdness.
Thank you for that, Marina. And it fits so well into my next question, because my next question was, and maybe you can start, obviously being authentic comes at a price. So sometimes you're going against the grain, perhaps you're not conforming. So there's a price to that. You mentioned what that price is, and that's judgment and words. I'm going to talk about words for a second. And because you talked about this, what is the worst thing someone has ever said to you? And how did you respond to that?
Have I got a story for you? But I'll try to keep it really short. So I told you that somebody actually called me a loser on LinkedIn. So I wrote a post, it was Sunday, and the post was really benign in my opinion. I said, listen, why don't we stop giving out so much advice on everything to people? Like if you're somebody on LinkedIn who posts a lot, all of a sudden you're giving advice on everything. Like you figured out life and you know everything and you're giving advice on everything. I'm like, and it's too much. Like what makes you or me or somebody an expert at everything? Like really nothing. So I said, why don't we share experiences? Like this is how I did it, right? And this is what I learned. And this might be relevant to you and completely ridiculous to you and not work out for you, but work out for you. So why don't we do that? It was really benign. All of a sudden, I'm not going to name names, but if you contact me after, maybe I'll tell you who, because this person is a pretty well-known Montreal influencer, okay, on social media, like very active. This person thought it was about him. and lost it on me and started really, I'll tell you after, I really will tell you after, but started really attacking me and saying like, he thought I wrote about him, but there's like, and he does do that, but there's like a billion like him, right? Starts attacking me. And what I do when people attack me on LinkedIn, so how do I respond to those things, Rosalia, is I respond with an emoji of a sun. I say, I feel like you need a little bit of this in your life today, and so I'm sending you this, I'm sending you sun. But he continued, because when somebody wants to argue with you and attack you and you're not engaging, it upsets them even more. He's like, oh, so now you're trying to backpedal from how you insulted me. It was not about him. I didn't mention him because he was not even top anywhere in my mind, definitely not top of mind. That went into my DMs. It just continued. It was overwhelming. Then he got really upset and he blocked me, even though I was just saying, Sunday, great day, family time, etc. Here's a really funny, and I'm going to wrap up the story, not to take up too much time, but this is just really funny. It shows you how things can work out. So we did not know each other in person. This happened. A couple of months passed. I'm sitting at my office one day. I'm working, and I'm sitting at this big wooden table that we have. My back is turned to our entrance door, and I'm sitting and I'm working with a colleague. He's in front of me. We're on our computers, and I hear the door open behind, and I see my colleague look up and go, oh shit. And I'm like, what? And I turn back, and it's that guy. That guy from LinkedIn is walking in with our building manager because he's getting a tour of the building because he's looking for office space for his business. And they brought, like, this is random, right? He doesn't know I'm there. He doesn't know it's my business. He's walking in because we had a beautiful office and he was getting a tour. I look, my heart sinks, right? Like, the guy really attacked me, and he's like a big guy. So I get up, I go to one of the offices, I'm hiding out, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not a little girl, I'm not 5 years old. What the hell? I'm gonna do it. So I came out, I said hello, confronted. He started getting very emotional. I had to show him the door, but it just shows how incredible situations can work out. Very often, people are very comfortable at their keyboard. He was like a little boy, with a tail between his legs by the end of the meeting at the office that we had. But my heart was pounding. I was like acting like I was all confident, but I was just like when he left. So yeah, I guess that was one of the worst. It was quite aggressive. It was loser in names and everything. And then to have that in real life was a twist, without a doubt.
Thanks, Marina. And we're laughing, but obviously when these things happen, they can be no doubt painful. And obviously this went on and on. And it's so interesting I just want to share one thing before we go on to everybody else, because I'm sure that is not the only person who thought you were talking about them. That's what makes me laugh about, that's so interesting about posting comments like that, because people go on the defensive and say, that's aimed at me. So I'm not surprised you had a reaction like that. Okay, so who would like to go next? Okay, Kit, Guy, you put sorry, Kit, you're gonna be next. Okay, Guy, go ahead.
The question was worst thing somebody ever said to me, right?
Yeah. Because you were being you. I mean.
Yeah, my girlfriend told me she loves me for my mind. That was awful.
I'm sorry to hear that, Guy.
I know. Thank you.
Okay, kids.
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably a lot of people can relate to when we show up as ourselves, getting teased, getting bullied. When I was in high school, and even like in 2021, it's changed and moved a lot. But for decades, my how I present and my gender has been something that a lot of people have made fun of or put into question, and so I think that's one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about the work that I do, because I want to live in a world where people can show up. I don't know if anyone's seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine. There's that one quote that Captain Holt says about like when Rosalia comes out as bi to him, and he just says like, I can't remember the exact quote, but it's one of the most beautiful things that I've ever heard. And it's like when anyone opens up and becomes more of who they truly are, the world becomes a better, more interesting place, and I think that we're in a really interesting moment in 2021, because I think we're finally starting to maybe not finally, I think because of hundreds and hundreds of years of hard work that people that have not been included have pushed the door. It's not like we're at this point where we're finally starting to connect. I think it's been because of the work of so many countless people that are named and unknowable, that we can reach a point where some of those comments might happen less, or if they happen, might come with more of a spaciousness to actually understand and be curious about why they exclude, you know? And so, you know, I don't have a specific moment because there's been many, many, many. But I definitely think that I use those experiences in the moments where I feel strong to continue to focus on opening up space for other people as we go.
Thank you, Kit.
Can I take a second try at it? Leslie, I'm sorry, it's gonna be good.
Go for it.
What-
No, I insist.
Okay, so more seriously, and to what Marina was saying before, right? There's people that are gonna throw garbage at you, right? But how many people do you need to be supportive to you to just say, look, it's okay. There's all these people that throw garbage, but the people that matter to you, that care about you, are gonna be supportive of you. Right? Whether you do something that works out, whether you, in quote, fail at something, the people that matter are going to support you. And everybody else can just, you know, it's okay. If I did good for you, I'm happy. If I didn't, I'm sorry. But the people that matter. I know none of this is easy. But just trying to remind ourselves does help.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for adding that. I love that your serious side and that you hit us with your funny side and then you came with something poignant. So thank you for both. Both are equally accepted and welcome. And I put in the chat, yeah, Captain Holt. How do you not love Captain Holt?
Yeah.
So I found the quote because I love that episode. And he says, every time someone steps up and says who they are, the world becomes a better, more interesting place. So thank you. Is that the quote you were referring to, Kit? Yeah, so that great, fantastic episode. Okay, over to you, Leslie.
I was going to say, I love Captain Holt. I love his style. I love the way he gets all excited. Mine was one of the times I got fired. I got good at it at one point. I was called into the office and there's HR and there's, I don't know, 2 top HR people. And then, you know, like I should have known what was coming. So I was sitting there like oblivious. And then they hand me like a little pink slip, not even a pink slip, it's an envelope. They just pushed it across the desk. So I'm there, well, what's this? He goes, well, we're letting you go. And I was like dumbfounded. I said, well, you know, I asked why. I said, I got a great team. I put a great team together. They're super performant. They're working under tough conditions. They're happy. And the response was, if we wanted clowns, we would have hired clowns. And, you know, looking back, it's not the worst thing. It's just that it put all my leadership style to the test. And like, I started questioning, well, wait, and, you know, in hindsight, it was a little bit arrogant of me to think that I could walk into an organization and change the culture, you know, at a well, I would say mid manager level. What did I do? I let them fire me, and it was very, very positive after the first six months. But I've used that today. Like I joke around, and I'm fully aware that, you know, we were talking about it earlier, being a clown and stuff. It has a negative connotation. People don't take you seriously, or you're just, how good can you be? You're clowning around. So it's to temper the humor in certain situations. When that voice goes off, like, don't say that. I listen to it more than I used to in the old days. So that's it.
Quick question, Leslie. Did your team love you?
Well, yeah. It was
There you go.
Not
there
to be like, not to boast, but they called it Black Monday.
Yeah.
I had a Black Monday named after me.
You should boast about that. That's not
It
a weird
wasn't like
brag,
the
that's
stock
excellent.
market crashing or anything, but it was close.
Wow, on that note, and then I'll pass it over to Valerie, but so Leslie, you said that now you think twice more than you used to because of that experience. Is that correct about what you're going to say?
When the voice comes up, like maybe I shouldn't say this right now, I'll think about it. I usually say it anyway, but I think about it. But it's more, well, I can't help it. But it hammered in my like the way I want to lead. And it just give me more resolve. Like, all right, you didn't like it, that's your problem.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I'm wondering if the other panelists, have they changed? You know, have you changed based on an experience, based on perhaps getting in trouble? And we know that being yourself, we've already talked about how that can be problematic if people don't accept it and everybody's expected to conform, especially in an organization especially where the culture might be a little bit backdated, for lack of better words. Did any of you change, or do you think twice the way Leslie does now? But I love that he says it anyway. Did anybody want to comment on that? And you don't have to, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, I still say it anyway. It's true. It reminds me of actually a really key moment in my own professional development, where I was working with a consulting firm that works in the Cree territories, and yeah, they basically asked me to sign a contract that I was really uncomfortable with, in terms of they're a settler organization, and they basically wanted me to do a non-competitive disclosure that would say that all of the organizations across the James Bay were their organizations to work with, even though they didn't have work with all of them. And it was a real hard moment for me, because ethically I didn't feel good about it. But everybody around me was sort of like, oh, but it's not that big of a deal, or like, and people that I really respect and that I take seriously in terms of ethics. And I think it was a moment where, I really realized, I think at certain points you have to make decisions for yourself, even if everybody around you doesn't agree, as long as I felt like you feel clear about it for yourself, and you've spent the time reflecting. I think that it's good to trust the niggle. That's sometimes what the word that I use is, that niggle that I get, and I remember having the conversation with them, and it was an incredibly uncomfortable conversation, because I was basically saying, like, hey, I think that, and I remember they said, oh, we'll make an exception for you. You don't have to sign it this way. And I thought about it, and I got back to them and I said, I just don't want to work with an organization who asks anyone to sign this. And again, it was one of those situations where, my partner was like, are you sure that you're not being a little bit too anal here? I don't know if I should beep that, but anyway. And like, the people around me that I trust and respect were also saying similar things. And I was just like, oh my God, Zita, your hair looks amazing. And I think you got it cut and it looks so good. Anyway. Yeah. And it was just, I think it was, I wouldn't want to change that decision. I think I would still want to speak. And I'm not saying it was the right decision, but it was the right decision for me. Do you know what I mean? And I think that that's something that can be really important sometimes, is just to trust that niggle.
I'm going to borrow niggle. I trust that niggle. I love that. I know exactly I think I know what you mean, but I think that's a wonderful word to describe it. Leslie, Guy, do you want to, Marina, do you want to comment on that? On have you changed the way, or maybe you edit yourself a little or censor yourself a little more than you used to because of situations that happen? Or in the case of Leslie and now kids saying they might think about it, but they still say it.
Mm-hmm. I spent so many years trying to change myself and adjust and edit to fit in. And you were absolutely right, Kit, when you said at the beginning you didn't want to, assume or project onto me, the possibility of looking for a sense of belonging or community. But that's exactly what I needed. I wanted to be like everybody else, and I didn't want to stick out, and I didn't want people to look and then look a second time, not because I look great, but because something's weird or off. And so I went to McGill University, and I went to McGill Business School, and I love McGill. McGill Business School is a world of its own, and it can be a tiny little bit snooty and special, just a tiny little bit. And I was a recent immigrant fresh off the boat from Eastern Europe. We wear heels 12 months of the year. It doesn't matter whether it's snow or whatever. We're full makeup, hair done, dresses, we wear heels. That's what we do. You show up like that at university when you're 19 years old, where everybody's in sneakers and like Lululemon sweatpants and messy buns. I tried recreating that look. You don't understand how many times, and it just wouldn't work. And I tried to like adjust how I was speaking and how I was acting. And oh, everybody has backpacks. Like we wore bags. bags. Like we didn't have backpacks. Okay, let me go get a backpack. And I spent so many years trying to fit in and realizing that it's just futile. You still stick out for one reason or another, and you're weird. And then people also don't gravitate towards you because you're pretending, and people can feel when you're pretending. They feel that you're trying something and it's just uncomfortable for everybody, yourself included. And so where I had a change in my life and a pivotal moment where I said, I'm just going to be me, because I had this realization, we try so hard to fit in because we want to be liked, right? Like that's usually why, like we want to be liked. So we try to adjust ourselves. But in that pursuit of wanting to be liked, we run the risk of not being loved by anybody because we're not really authentic deeply enough, where people just, some people will not like us because they're like, that one's a weirdo, that one's a loudmouth, that one's a clown, that one's funny and I'm not funny, or like, what is it, right? The people will judge, some people won't like us, but the ones that like us, they likely will love us because then we're being really radically authentic. And how I realized that is, I started doing a lot of public speaking and wasn't getting the best feedback, whatever, and was working on that, et cetera, et cetera. I just for years did not want anybody to really realize that I was Eastern European. There's a lot of bias that people carry about Eastern European women. I'm not going to get into that right now, but there's a lot. And even though my name gives it away, right? Like it's pretty clear, but I still just did not want to even talk about it. Like that was just a thing of the past that would mention, like I graduated from McGill. I'm like, here's what I do. And I own a business, etc. And then one day I was giving a talk, and it was a talk at a dinner. Those are the worst because everybody's concerned with like what entree they're gonna have. Are they gonna have like chicken or beef? And is it gonna be red wine or white wine? And like everybody's like clanking there with spoons. That's the worst. So I come out, I start my talk, and all of a sudden the room goes so quiet, like really quiet, to the point where people put their cell phones down. When people put their cell phones down, like you really know you said something, like something's going on. So I'm standing there and I'm like, what did I say? And then I realized for that particular talk, because of the nature of the talk and the event, etc., I started by saying, I was born in the Soviet Union, and I was born in the Soviet Union to a Jewish father. And because I was born in the Soviet Union to a Jewish father, like that. So this was the first time me sharing that publicly anywhere. And I realized, like, what? People find that compelling and interesting? Like, that's what makes them put their phones down and pay attention and then come to me after and be like, I had no idea. Like, I've known you, but I had no idea. Tell me more. And then that's when I realized that all that self-fixing and trying to fit in and trying to hide things and be like everybody else and self-editing, wasn't doing me any good, but also wasn't working. I wasn't even successful at it. So that was that moment of change for me.
Thank you very much. And Guy, do you want to weigh in on that? You don't.
Yeah, I also try to think, should I say this? But if it needs to come out, it needs to come out. I can try to fight it, but it's going to come out eventually, right? I have to say it. The one thing I'm trying, and still it's very hard to work on, is to cut down on the sarcasm. Like, it needs to come out, keep the sarcasm down, don't ruffle too many, say it, but say it nicely. Besides that, it just has to be.
Guy, a day without your sarcasm is like a day without sunshine. So I hope you don't get rid of it. But there are many sides of you, right? And so that's just one of them. And I wouldn't want you to get rid of that one, that's for sure. I just want to make a comment to Nia, who says, yes, being herself, she said it took her 3 decades to realize, and she was commenting on what Marina had said. And she had lots of people around me, but they were not really into what I was really about, family included. So that means you lose people along the way. And I think you all spoke to that a little bit, but I did want to acknowledge that in your comments, and feel free, everybody in the chat, to if you want to answer that as well. Valerie, would you like to take over from here? Do you have a question for our panelists?
I do. I was listening to what has been shared, and Marina, as an immigrant, and we follow you on LinkedIn and you speak to immigrants a lot, there's that sense of needing to be the same, needing to fit in. What advice do you have for other immigrants who are in this awkward place where they feel they can't be truly themselves? How do they break through that feeling to be okay with who they are, regardless of how different they are?
It's such a great question, but such a loaded question too, right? So one, there is a component for, immigrants, for us, who just arrived, to learn the new way of being, because the country is different and some expectations are different, and that's okay, right? So that's okay to just say, well, this is how we are in my country and I'm going to continue being the same. And I'm talking about small things. I'm not talking about like deep, I don't know, religious beliefs, of course, or anything like that. I'll give you a light example. And that's important, learning how things are done to be able to assimilate yourself in a certain way. If you're looking for a job, to understand the process, to understand what's expected, to step out of your comfort zone, it is important. You can't just be, oblivious or say, well, this is how things are done at home, this is how it's going to be. Quick example. One of the things that surprised me when I came to Canada is that people smile a lot. And not because like they're happy or somebody said something funny, but just because like that's like a polite thing to do. So people would just say something and then smile. And I wasn't used to that. Like people don't smile much in Eastern Europe. Like it's just not a thing. If you've been to Eastern Europe, people are just like more stern and serious. But we're happy inside. We're just like smiles are associated with like somebody said a joke or like something pleasant, and then you smile. So I had to learn to just like, you walk into a store, you smile. You come into an interview, right? It's not just like hi, it's like hi. And you smile, and you have to smile, right? So when I'm doing coaching sessions for immigrants and training, I tell people you have to smile. That's like a silly thing, but you have to. How I also realized, when I really realized that that's the thing in Canada, is when I graduated from McGill and I traveled back home to Ukraine. And that's when I realized that people there don't get it. So I realized that even more, because people in Canada will be a little bit more accepting of you not smiling. People back in Ukraine were not accepting to you smiling for no reason. So I remember, let's say, walking into a store and be like, hi, and saying hi, like nobody says hi when they walk into the store. And the clerks look at me like, and then quoting me prices that made no sense. Like this t-shirt is $100 US, just because they're like, oh, this loser is from somewhere else now. Like she doesn't get it. So little things, I'm giving a lighthearted example, but of course we have to learn, right? Or like some people, for example, come from countries where networking is not a customary thing to do. Putting yourself out there, messaging somebody, asking for a coffee virtual chat is weird, but in Canada, it's not weird. So it is important to find, ways that are, and other than that, how to keep that authenticity. I think it's a work in progress for everybody, regardless of whether or not you're an immigrant, right? It is a journey. And, somebody said in comments, it took her 3 decades to get there. It takes us our whole lives to get there. So immigrant or not, being an immigrant comes with its own, set of adventures, challenges, and lots of faux pas along the way. But I think it's a lifelong journey for all of us.
Yeah,
Can I
add to that, or?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Kit, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I can really relate to buying t-shirts for too much money. No, I'm kidding. Because I just look like a chump. You'd buy that for 4 times the price. But I actually do think that it is a lifelong journey. And I think that one of the things that I really want to impart, that I feel compelled to, that's on my heart, is that it doesn't mean like being authentic or being truthful about myself doesn't mean that I always know who I am. It also doesn't mean that I always feel sure. And it's also doesn't mean that I also that I don't care what other people think. I'm 43 and I still care what other people think a lot. I want you to all like me. I want to feel a sense of connection. I want to be understood. I want to be approved. I think that it's a really human experience. And I think for a long time, I tried to hide that about myself, because I am so incapable of following rules that I think a lot of people assume that I don't care, and I've heard that from my family members and from people in my life, like, oh yeah, but you don't have any problems with confidence and I'm like, yeah, of course I do. I struggle with self-confidence all the time. And I think about, how other people see me all the time, because I'm human and I've been brought up to have those thoughts. Like it's so to Marina's point, I think it is a lifelong journey. And I think that there are those moments. I think it's very much that sort of that wave that I've experienced, where I have seasons where I feel really secure and connected, and other seasons where I feel quite disconnected and feel, pretty unsure of myself. And I don't think that necessarily needs to, I don't know how that relates to actions and to how I think we can, I think it's possible to be authentic through it all. I guess I just wanted to throw that out there because I feel like it's really, I feel like sometimes in the mainstream culture, there's this sense of like, we have to achieve, we have to get to a place, you know what I mean? Like now I love myself. Now I'm authentic. And I think it's kind of a shit show, actually. I think we're all really messy babies, you know? And so I just felt really compelled to share that.
That's such a good point that you just made, Kate, because with that comes a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves. And then we also become less authentic as a result, right? So I remember, for example, so last year during the pandemic, I started hosting daily LinkedIn Live interviews, was interviewing a lot of people. But I was going through a lot of just torment with my business, with everything. Just it was really hard. I spent most nights like crying, bawling my eyes out. But then I would go on camera and I would like smile and interview people. And so many people were messaging me, be like, oh my God, you are such an inspiration. Like you're living your best life through the pandemic. Like good for you. Like I'm so proud of you. And then I'd be like, oh my God, am I a fraud? But I'm not lying when I'm on camera. I am very excited. In that moment, I feel really happy and excited. And the person I'm interviewing, they're fascinating. So like this is my lifeline. But I am like, I'm losing it at nights and in the evenings. But do I tell the person? Like, do I tell them like, actually, no, like it's complex. But do they need to hear it? I don't want to be one of those people when they're like, hey, how are you? I'm like, well, let me tell you, right? Like nobody wanted to know. So I'm like, but am I a fraud? Am I misleading people? Then like all that pressure starts mounting. So yes, it is usually a shit show and it's complex, right? And there are moments we're authentic. There are moments that we're like, what was that? Like, what did I say? What did I do? Like what happened here? What happened there? It's not all black and white. And things are not always as they appear, right? To others, they're really not.
Thanks to
Just,
all of you.
just to
Yeah,
add a
please,
little
please
bit,
go ahead.
that
Yes.
I feel the same way Kit was describing before, where we can be authentic, but we do have those self-doubts. We do, have these thoughts of, yeah, sure, okay, I'm being invited there because I succeeded my way. I'm a loser. Yeah. So you freak out over that. But when we do have those peaks, and I don't know if it totally relates to the question where you were asking before about when immigrants come in, but whenever we have, like, we're in a position of strength, or of we're solid, right? So I'll say about immigrants, I'm from here, I'm a white man from Canada. Well, part of my job is to make sure that immigrants know that they're welcome here. We value you, you're different, but it's cool. It's all good. When I'm feeling good and somebody else is in that shit show moment where it's my job to say, hey, look, you'll be fine. You'll be okay. You'll get through it. You've gone through it thousands of times before, and you'll be fine next time. And, hopefully someday I'm going to be in that position and somebody else says, hey, you know what? You're not so bad after all either. Cool. Right. So we all encourage each other, and that's what makes us good with ourselves.
Thank you all for sharing that. And
Can I just add one thing? We're talking about conformity, and I think way back, it starts in school. It starts in grade 1 practically. You have to conform. I'm assuming that I'm not the only one that had to write lines. Lots of them. And they still do it. Yeah, and you can tell. I gravitate towards people who used to write a lot of lines in school and does it do anything? No, but instead of saying like, okay, why does he keep talking? And why, why? Instead of saying that's a bad thing, there's a gift here. There's something here. And then I'm not the only one. So like, it's being shaved off, it's being suppressed because, it's not adding numbers or whatever. So like a whole segment of our population has all these gifts that are being squashed in school. And sorry, Marina, you're talking about, not sorry, Marina, but Marina, you're talking about being an Eastern European immigrant. I'm second generation Eastern European immigrant. And, like when I was in high school, I just wanted to fit in. Like, I had the big ears and I was skinny, so already it was tough, but I wanted to fit in. And I remember my mom bought me a lime green polyester suit with a beige shirt and rhinestones. And I went to school with this. Everyone's wearing jeans and Black Sabbath t-shirts. It didn't help. but it, like my grandmother says, it makes you stronger. But and then finally, like, we're talking about self-esteem. I feel that there's a conversation going towards imposter syndrome here somewhere. And Marina, I saw your post earlier, and it's so relevant. But so many of our participants have very little self-confidence left. By the time they come to an organization when they've exhausted all their means, and by the time they get to us, no self-confidence. And how can you do anything if you don't have any self-confidence? So, that's something that you have to work on getting back, and it's a process, and get somebody to help you. Just, if you're there, and the fun part is watching them start to realize, that, oh, wait a minute, I'm not a loser. And these are all the things that I have going for me, but we forget that because it's not valued ever. Okay, that's it. I'll shut up.
Please don't shut up.
No, you don't want this, because there is a time limit, I'm assuming.
We can go on all night, but people might start leaving at 5:30, which was the time we ended. But I know we could talk about this for days on end, and we'd still have lots to say. I'll just ask one more question before we open it up to our audience, which I know will have questions. And Leslie, you touched on it now, but would you say all of you are in, and maybe Guy's a little bit of an exception, but I have to tell you, Guy, we met Guy, you don't mind if I disclose this? Well, I guess it's too late, so thanks in advance. I'll ask for forgiveness instead of permission. We met Guy through the School of Continuing Studies. He came to one of our sessions, and what do we notice about him right away? Even though he was searching for something, he was helping other people all the time. So what I'm going to include you in this by saying, all of you are in helping roles. So I know, Guy, that might not be your role at work, but I think that's your role as a human being. So for all of you, you are in helping roles at work. And I'm wondering, do you preach what you practice? Do you tell people who come see you that they can be authentic at any cost? Because that does have costs. And when people are looking for work, as is the case with many of us, that's what we do for work, that might be, a hard sell, or it might be taking them down a difficult road. So I was just wondering about that, and your thoughts on that, and how you approach that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Something came to mind right away. I work with individuals, but also with organizations. So I work with organizational culture and then the individuals within it. So I'd say no and yes. And leave it at that. No, because I think it really depends on what the person is looking for in order to feel content, and what pushing and stretching looks like for them, and what the organizational reality is, so I don't think that the kind of authenticity that I yearn for is going to be realized by people within my lifetime, which sounds a bit, negative, Nelly, but I just think that's for the most part true, unless you're somebody that has a lot of privilege and status to be able to do that. I really think that. I really do think that we live in a society that is, starting to shift in has been shifting, and we're at a really interesting point in the shift. But there's a lot of organizations where culturally, I know that people, if they're as authentic as they want to be, they're not going to be able to stay. And if they want to stay, then that's the stretch that you work with, right? And so I think that it's about working with people where they're at, working with people within the context of where they're at within their context, and figuring out what that balance is. And sometimes people are ready to move out of a context, in which case that's the stretch that they're ready for, and sometimes they're not. And I think that it's really important to go with the energy that's there, really listen to the energy that's there. Where is that person really at right now? And where's their context at right now? And kind of try to figure it out from that sort of perspective. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I approach it like that because I'm often thinking about the larger organizational culture and what is possible within it, and structures and organizational systems are very powerful energies, and so they have to be taken into account.
Kit, I think that was a complex answer, because it's truly a complex question, right? Because what does being ourselves really mean? We're not unidimensional. We're really complex, right? And we can choose what side of ourselves we are leaning into and showing, depending on context, situation, where we're at in life, and what's appropriate, right? I can be really, I don't know, loud and crass and out of control with my close girlfriends, but is it inauthentic if I'm more professional and more corporate and more mindful of how I speak in a really corporate setting if I'm, let's say, on a board of directors somewhere, right? It's situation specific and context specific, but it's still me. What I find is really specific, is important though, and that's what I work with people on when they come to me to build their personal brand, or when they come to me for career coaching services, is we really do a deep dive into your core values. What are your core values? Because those are non-negotiable, they're really ones, no matter the situation. And Pat Lencioni, who's one of my favorite business writers, said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, true, authentic core values have the possibility of inflicting pain. It's not always, family, teamwork, unity, all those things that sound great and feel great. It's always, even if it sucks and it doesn't feel good at all. So very quick example there. And so where I do walk the walk and I push with my clients is not, come in an interview and be yourself because you're like putting your feet up on the table and that's where you're comfortable and just do that in an interview. No, that's not situation appropriate. But if that's such a part of your core values of you just being really casual, then start your own business, because that's where it's going to be at. It's not going to be a corporate environment, right? So core values becomes really, really important. One of my core values is censorship is evil. Okay, so for obvious reason, like Soviet Union, Jewish, nobody wanted to hear what I had to say for a long time. So it serves me, but it doesn't always serve me. As I mentioned to you, when I put myself out there, I sometimes get really nasty comments. Like I get called a lot of names on LinkedIn. Like somehow I trigger people for one reason or another. If you know the reason, you don't have to tell me right now, but you can, but you don't have to. So when somebody leaves me a nasty comment and says like, wow, you're really vain, or like, that's dumb, or something else, all I can think about is not that person or what they think, because you're right, Guy, like who cares what, but I'm thinking of other people, what people I care about are going to say. And like, are they going to be like, what, maybe I'm not going to comment on her stuff. And like, what? So it starts getting amplified in my head. Then I start getting messages from people who do like me and support me. Marina, did you see what that idiot wrote on your wall? You should delete that comment and you should block him. And I can't delete the comment and I can't block him. I have not blocked a single person on LinkedIn or any social media ever, because censorship is evil. I can't. I don't preach it for other people. I think that if for you, your values are no, like you don't want to be insulted and attacked and you would rather delete it, 101%. Like my sister, same upbringing, she blocks people like for no reason. Like she's an obsessive blocker, because she just creates her own reality on social media, right? This is how I am. So true core values, knowing what they really are, it's 100% of the time, it's even when it sucks and it's unpleasant, that's where we're getting close to our authenticity. It's not necessarily, I'll say everything that pops in my mind every moment of my life. It's not, I'm just going to behave completely how I want every single situation. In my opinion, it's not, but I am going to stay true to my core authentic values no matter what. That to me is authenticity.
And I love that. Thank you, Marina. Reminds me, somebody once put on my LinkedIn profile something that they were disappointed in how I tried to help them. And it was pretty harsh. And, someone asked me, aren't you going to remove that? No. Why would I remove that? I mean, that's their opinion of me. They're allowed. I'm certainly not going to be the one to remove it. I mean, I answered, but I'm not going to remove it. So I love that. And I love your point about values too, because and that you mentioned that it hurts, and maybe that's something you all could touch on later too, is some of the things that you obviously being, I know we're throwing the word around authentic, but it's more like championing for the things you champion, and being authentic to your values and your principles can be painful, can be ostracizing, and we heard those examples. So thank you for sharing all of that. And I can't believe it's 5:03. So I think it's important that we have the audience ask questions, because there's no doubt in my mind that they have questions. Anybody, feel free, and really, this is the space for you to do it. Feel free to speak up and ask your question. This is the time to do it to any or all of our panelists.
I don't think it's a question so much as a comment, if I may. Hi, everyone. What really strikes me, and we've said this word authentic so many times, but it's the ability to outwardly, whether or not you have, things inside that you're still trying to struggle with, that we all do, but the ability to show outside that you can, you will, and you persevere. And after a while, that what's striking me is that you really give me the impression that you will and you do succeed at all that you want, because you're willing to face those obstacles or demons or whatever the things may be. So whether or not it's a level of imposter syndrome that you don't recognize you're dealing with on the outside, hearing you specifically, Marina, speaking about how, you're not going to censor somebody and whatnot, it shows me your character and it makes me want to then understand you further. Right. And so it really does make me hear you as a panelist, all of you, and say, yeah, we can be immigrants, we can be women, we can identify however we identify and still find our way, and we can still find our way unapologetically. And we don't get to hear these messages often. So I think it's important to say, like, kudos to you for giving that space to be your best version of yourself, and the grace to figure out that can change all the time.
Thank you, Zita. And you mentioned again the imposter syndrome, and it keeps coming up, right? Because it's just a topic that we all relate to, right? Like, I want to meet a person who says, actually, I'm sure there are people who don't experience imposter syndrome, but I would say that's a sign of not stepping out of your comfort zone. Right. So, like, for example, and I think in the video that I posted that you mentioned you were watching, Leslie, I think I mentioned this example there. If you're always running a 5K marathon, when you show up to run yet another 5K marathon, you're not experiencing the imposter syndrome. You're not thinking like, oh my God, who am I? These people, there's a better, none of that. You come, you do it, right? But then when you sign up for a 50K marathon, I don't even know if such a thing exists because like I've never run anything. But let's say you show up for a 50K marathon and you've never done it. You're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? I'm an idiot. These people look like they're so much more in shape. And like everybody's so much better, right? So imposter syndrome is normal. It's a sign that we're stepping out of our comfort zone, and that's where growth happens. It's still unpleasant as hell. It's not, like it makes us sometimes fail at what we're doing, and then it exacerbates the thinking further. But it is where growth happens, and it is only normal if we are stepping out of our comfort zone.
Thank you for that, Zita. Anybody else? To Valerie's point, you can write your question in the chat, but feel free to ask your question to any or all of our panelists. Any question goes. There'll be no censorship here. Anyone? Okay, Valerie, do you have another question?
I do. I have a question for Guy. So in Guy's previous life, he was an accountant. And accountants, there's stereotypes that tend to go around, that accountants are very serious, very reserved, very numbers people, and you are anything but that. How did that work for you in terms of transitioning out of accounting to what you do now?
Transitioning out wasn't so much a problem. Transitioning in was very difficult. I mean, long story short, high school, I was like a troublemaker. I wasn't a bad person, bad student, just trying to make a problem all the time, right? Dropped out of high school, worked, went back to school when I was 26 to university. And business was interesting to me. So that's why I ended up in accounting. But to go back to what we said in the beginning is not so much why, but why not. I went, I learned stuff. I learned about business. I learned about finance. I bought my own business that I ran for 15 years, I think. It was a wood shop. I knew nothing about wood. I learned what I needed to learn. It was fun. It was exciting. I got fed up at some point. I sold it. I went back to school in supply chain because seems interesting. And, I keep moving forward with that, but it's always, there's no reason why other than this seems interesting. This seems like I'm going to learn something. This seems like I can do something good. Seems to fit with me now. And the day it doesn't fit with me anymore, it's going to be something else, right? Can I help someone along the way? And you said it before, I like I'm sort of at this point where I'm not a huge success, but relatively speaking, I get more joy out of seeing someone else succeed than whatever success I can get myself, right? So seeing someone that would struggle to get to a certain point and make that step forward and build the confidence is so joyous. And so yeah, I was an accountant. I don't know.
Thank you so much for that, Guy. And I think you touched on something important too, that success is relative, right? When we tend to end up comparing ourselves to what's truly successful versus what we're doing. But in our eyes, you're a superstar, and thank you for being you.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking our ribbing on being an accountant. When Guy was in our course, I think I picked on him every 5 minutes saying, well, yeah, that's the accountings coming from the accounting corner. So thank you for being okay with our ribbing of you, but we do that with love, of course, as you know.
It makes my day. I love it.
I have a question for Leslie. I was wondering, so La Pascal, as you said, helps people in the 40-45 who are plus age group who are transitioning. And I was wondering, what was your career trajectory? You talked about being fired a lot at one particular point. So I was wondering what all of these experiences, how they help you or how they direct or inform your approach now at La Passerelle.
Oh, good one. You know, hold on, I'm having an ADHD moment. Okay, so here's the thing. We're talking about authenticity. And I think one of the best things that happened to me is when I realized I don't have to be perfect. I grew up like I was a consultant, and you have to always present a perfect image, et cetera, et cetera. And when I realized that you don't have to be perfect and it's quite okay to screw up. I mean, anybody that comes to my workshops that's here knows that happens a lot in the workshop, and it just makes it more real along those lines. And I'll take a quick side note. Guy, you're saying you were a troublemaker. I didn't fit in either. Like, I wore the suit, but I worked for a company where we had to be professional and serious. And instead of going for smoking breaks, we used to go to the roof and have laughing breaks. We're like 3 of us, and we tell jokes and we get it all out of our system, then go back and pretend we're serious. Actually, my colleague got fired because she was laughing too much. So anyways, all this to say, like, I'm trying to get back to the question that you asked. The trajectory of my life it was fine. I had a nice trajectory. I thought I was in control. It was in IT, and every job was like one step up. And then, like so many of our participants, everything falls apart at one point, whether, you get fired, whether it's and I didn't always get fired because of my mouth. There were sometimes it was like external factors too, just to clarify. But, okay, back to what I was saying. It was a straightforward trajectory. And then like it fell apart, and then it was all out of the blue. Like I went to La Passerelle and I said, I just need help with my interview, and after 2 sessions, clearly you need more help than you expected you need. And, it turned into 24 weeks. But, and, then one thing happens after another. When you open it up and you're not like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then life kind of gives you things. So then I was walking my dog one day and I got a phone call from somebody I met at an information session at La Passerelle. She said, look, this company, the HR manager just quit, and they desperately need somebody. Do you want to take it? And to me, like, if you desperately need somebody, I'm the man. I mean, like, there's no pressure. There's not, like, you don't have anybody. So no matter how badly I do, it's going to be great. So that was an amazing job. And then from there, I ended up at La Passerelle, which was really not at all in my trajectory. So I tell people this, and then we talked a little bit about it. I call it magic, because there's not an explanation. It's not like I did this and that happened, and it happened completely out of the blue. And if you ask me what I'm really proud of, it's to be able to introduce magic into the professional realm. And then we have our participants going, it's magic. And it's like I met somebody on the metro, we started talking, and then led to a job. So yeah, I try to incorporate the out of the blue aspect into your job search, where it's just you create opportunities and you go with it. See, I could easily talk forever.
And you do a fine job at it. So thank you. I think that was an excellent question to the answer. And that's exactly, because I was just curious, when sometimes it could be challenging because of your experience that people have had on what you do now, but could be a benefit. And I think it's so interesting to use the experiences you've had and then to help other people along. And Greg has a question, and Greg, I'll get right to you, but I just want to read a question here from Michelle. For each of the panelists, what's something that you're focused on these days that's just outside of your comfort zone? Love this question, also known as your current challenge. This is a fantastic question. Thank you for submitting that, Michelle. And Greg, I will get to you in one moment.
So I have two. Marina, do you want to go first?
Go ahead, I'll go after you.
The first one is to do less. So to actually spend more time listening to what I need, which is, and actually the second one, oddly, now that I think of it, really connects to the first one, which is how do I start to really focus and I think it's starting to happen, but I really want to put this out into the universe to have the work that I do. When I first started doing organizational development about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, my core value that I worked with was to only work with clients whose mandates I thought were of use or of something that I wanted to see in the world. So I work with a lot of not-for-profits, higher education, people who I don't think are doing asshole-ish things. But now I'm getting more and more, like the climate change and all those things are a huge issue. But for me, I think that and I think that there's a lot of people who are really active in the environmental movements. And I've always been like, oh yeah, I wish I was into that, but I'm not. I don't even recycle. No, I'm kidding. I don't even think recycling is that actually useful. Anyway, whatever. This is a digression. But what I do think is that, and it's kind of like the one-track pony that I have in a way, because I think it's what I really care about is that I think systemic oppression is killing the planet. I really believe that. And I think that environmental issues stem from that. And so I'm really curious now, is it possible for me to find ways where I can work with organizations who are interested in really doing things differently, really starting to turn things upside down? I don't even know if it's possible for organizations that are the way that we are, like how to change the system from within the rules of the system. I have no idea, but I think that's the part that I'm really, and I'm saying it out loud now more because I just want to name it. And it feels radical to me because I'm like, I do think white supremacy is harming everyone, including myself, as a white person. I'm not it's something that I take really seriously. And so I guess for me, that would be the thing, because it feels very provocative to even say it, to in a group of 40 people say those words and be like, you don't know who I am. You don't know what I mean by that. Maybe you think that I hate all white people. I'm what, and it's so much more nuanced than that. But I would say that that's where my heart is heading, is how to look at doing that work in a compassionate, spacious sense of belonging for all of us way, because that's the whole friggin' point, right? So that's me.
It's so hard to go after that. What the hell? Here's what I'm focused on right now.
I'm not focused on it. I'm just thinking about, I'm focused on, I'm not doing it necessarily, right? But I'm thinking about it a lot.
I love it. It's great. It was inspiring to hear. Okay, so my immediate focus, because you said, Michelle, right now, and then I'll go a little bit more macro. Micro focus, getting my family back to Canada. we were supposed to be back home on Saturday, and just not happening and not happening. And I just want it to be over. And I can't complain. I'm in Florida, but still, nonetheless, I'm a control freak, and things are out of control, and that feels awkward. Maybe that's what I should work on. is my obsession with control. There we go, just uncovered something. I would say then being a little bit more macro is what I'm trying to overcome is my own self-doubts, my own questions of, you know, who am I? Am I a loser? Am I a failure? Who am I? Because, you know, as I briefly mentioned in, you know, beginning of March of 2020, I was the, you know, my own definition of highly successful. You know, I had a business that was, you know, really high revenue, a gorgeous office, you know, a team, everything was great. And then the pandemic and had to lay off and had to see revenue go to zero some months. It wasn't even zero before we started. We started because clients approached us to start, you know, to give us mandates. So started just losing everything crumbling, and then feeling like I'm a failure and feeling like, who am I? If I'm not the successful business owner and that's my identity, then what is my identity? And I'm very career oriented. So it was important for me to find an answer to that question. So now that that business is kind of a little bit still afloat, but I'm building a new business, I have a lot of questions, and it's rebuilding. And then you're like, well, at what age do you rebuild and you're okay with it? Or should I be more advanced right now? Because again, like March 2020, I felt very advanced, but now I don't. So now I'm like, oh. So the biggest thing to overcome now is just a lot of existential questions and a lot of, you know, questions within, which again, I know it's all part of growth and journey, and that is what makes us grow. It's not the comfort of just always being in the safe situations. But I think finding answers to a lot of those existential questions are definitely for me right now, big focus. That and coming back home.
I'll echo the same as Marina. It's, you know, outside the comfort zone is always coming back to reminding myself it's okay. It's okay. Why stop judging yourself? It's okay. Always keep doing better, do your best. You're gonna be good. And it's lifelong. It's never gonna end. It's, you know, I have no hope that, you know, 6 months from now, I'll have it all together. It's like in 20 years, is that okay? It's going to be always, but that's the challenge, and it's okay.
I have a really boring answer. I mean, I have to start tracking my hours, and for those nonconformists, tracking your hours, like, you know, every hour of the day, minute of the day. Yeah, well, it's not my company that's asking. It's more the funder, but you know, that's going to be a big challenge for me, because it's everything that I enjoyed most about La Pastel, the chaos. And I love chaos. I love, like, you don't know what's going to happen, and somehow it works. Sometimes it does. Like my board said, how do you manage your budget? I told my board, like, not what a board wants to hear. That's something I learned late in life. They like to hear things like, it's under control. It's like whatever. Just words of wisdom. But that's the La Passerelle board. Yeah, doing the thing. And the other thing that's a little bit more serious is, and it's horrible because I preach this in workshop. It's the ageism thing. You know, and I'm very strong. I feel strongly about this. Is like, I look at our participants, and it's the youth in the eyes. It's how they look, and you know, age is not really a relevant factor in this. It's more how you feel. I was joking around the workshop. When my youngest was born, he looked like an old. Can I say fart in public? He looked like it's just an angry old man. And he was like, but then I see people, no, he's changed. He looks like not an angry man, but I see people in their 50s, 60s, super young, and you know, lots of energy, lots of drive. And in fact, the other day I read something where, you know, the actual cognitive power thing lasts till you're in your 30s. Not to discourage anybody, but like, that's at your peak. And then, you know, the experience starts to set in afterwards. So there's this advantage to being older too. But there are moments, I have to be honest, where I'm looking like, all right, I'm walking and there's a mirror, and then there's this gray-haired guy walking in front of the mirror, and they're like, who's that? And it's me. And it's like, okay, wait, small story. I was running for the bus the other day, and the bus driver stopped halfway between stops. And not only did he stop halfway, he lowered the thing. It's and it goes beep, beep, beep. And it's like, suddenly you're there. He stopped because he didn't want me to have a heart attack. And then he lowered the thing. So then you're going home going, oh, man, wow, I got old. When did this happen? So anyways, it's not a thing. It is a thing because those industries a little bit, ageism isn't included yet in this inclusiveness debate. It's not there yet, but it's getting there. So there.
I love that, Leslie, because it reminds
Have you run
me.
for a bus lately?
No, but it reminds me of the first time somebody, well, the only time, thankfully, somebody offered me their seat on the metro. And I'm thinking, is this because I'm old or is this because I'm large boned? And they think I'm pregnant. I'm not sure which it was, but I just looked at them very confused, like, no, I'm okay, thanks. But yeah, no, it might, I hope it's my age. I don't know what's worse, but thank you for all of that. I'm going to ask the panelists, do you have a few more minutes? Because Greg had a question. Is everybody okay to stay in for that last question? Thank you. So Greg, if you still have that question, please go ahead and ask it, or I don't know if it's a comment, but we'd love to hear from you.
No, it is still a burning question. Actually, when I first came up with the idea of asking, it was directed to Marina, but I wanted to open it up to other panel members now that we have maybe a few more minutes of your time. But Marina, initially, I was thinking about what kind of questions I ask about, and there's something you had said, I don't remember what it was, but it just reminded me of how I've reflected on your experience through the pandemic. Having to see the revenues from your previous company start to sink and so on, and having to make a hard decision about it. What I wanted to ask about was the ability to reinvent yourself through the course of the pandemic, because you've been in a lot of things. You put your hands in a lot of initiatives, and I've seen a lot of them come to fruition. I myself am transitioning, as you know, from a 10-year-old job, and other members of CATS here know, along with Guy, because we were in the same PTS group together, where I've talked about I want to transition away into something different. I'm in my last decade, I would say, of useful work. I know people stay well beyond their time retiring at 65, but I just kind of worry about making that jump. The inner voices, the demons. And that's where I open this question up to the other panel members, is how do you control that inner voice that tries to talk you out of taking that next step? So like I said, I'll just open it to everyone, but Marina, if you wanted to address that first, I'd love to hear it.
I wish I had like a really good answer for this. No, I don't always control it. I break down and I cry, and I talk to those closest to me, and I tell them, what, I'm a failure, and I don't know what I'm doing, and everything's horrible, and I only make bad decisions. And when you're really down on yourself, you're like down on everything, and then you think that everything is terrible. No, I can't say that my inner voice is completely under control. No, but what helps me a lot is, so what I did, I'll just tell you specifically what I did during the pandemic, when it was my lowest emotional point really ever. I really put myself out there, and it's really weird. It was very counterintuitive. Like I wanted to hide under my bed or like under covers, and just like for nobody to see me, because I'm like, oh my God, people are gonna ask me like, how's business and how's this and what am I gonna say? And like it was everything I wanted to hide. But for some reason, I decided to put myself out there. And one of the things I did was I created a Calendly link. Like it was the first time ever I figured out how Calendly works. And I wrote a message on LinkedIn, and I said, here's my Calendly link. And it's a really hard time right now. And if you would like to chat, and if you would like to just chat about anything, job search, losing job, whatever, let's speak. I'm here for you. I have, experience, whatever. And my calendar and I'm just saying, this is what worked for me. So this could be like completely useless to you, right? But that's what I did. And because all of a sudden I had a lot more time, because we had 0 projects, right? So what was I going to do? Well, kids were at home, so there was that to do. But anyways, so my calendar got filled up. And then as I started talking to people, and as I started giving, I started receiving. And what I started receiving, first of all, was a lot of feedback that I needed to hear. Like I started hearing from people, wow, like you're great. That was so helpful. Thank you so much for giving me. And I'm like, okay, I'm not a loser. Like I'm doing something good. Like people are saying that. So it must be true. So it started given to me as well. But what happened also, which is really interesting, because there was nothing imposed for me to have to do, I started just kind of going more with my instinct and doing things that felt natural. So that's when I launched my interview series. I started interviewing people. At that point also, Greg, I felt like I had nothing to lose. Like I was like, work-wise, I am losing everything. Like I'm going to zero. So like I could reach out to like the biggest global speaker on whatever and be like, hey, can I interview you on my LinkedIn live show that I launched the day before yesterday? And I could follow up and follow up and follow up because I didn't care. All of a sudden, that's just self-consciousness if somebody's going to reject me or not respond, that evaporated. It's coming back though, but at the time it evaporated. I became a lot less self-conscious. And then so what happened is, because I was leaning into just really being myself and putting myself out there a lot, opportunities started coming my way. So launching Brand of a Leader, the personal branding agency, it came out of people reaching out to me. There was no Brand of a Leader, but I had people reaching out to me saying, I'm seeing you, I'm watching you, and I felt like you could help me. I'm reinventing myself right now. I'm not happy where I'm at, and I feel that you could guide me. Do you think you could? In the same week, so very quick story, so I'm not taking up everyone's time, but in that 1 week, the first person reaches out, second person, third person, and fourth person, and they all say the same thing. I don't quite know why I'm reaching out to you, but I came across you, and like, this is the vibe I got, and could you help me? And like, no. And I said, well, let me get back to you, okay? So I sat down and I created a program, and I said, listen, it's going to be personal branding, because this is what I had started, doing some research work around. I'd done a lot of branding for organizations, employer branding, etc. Developed the program, got on the phone with the first person, so for a second time, and said, listen, you asked if I could help you. I can help you. I had nothing to lose, right? Again, like nothing, it was all lost. So I'm like, here's my program, and I'm like sharing my screen with like a PowerPoint and blah, 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 and blah, 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 and this is how much it's gonna cost, and this is what it is. And she's like a former president of a massive organization who's like trying to find her next step in life and what should she do next, right? So she's an intimidating lady. And so she looks at it all and she goes, okay, and how many times have you done this? And I'm looking at her and I'm like, I'm just not going to BS. Like, I am not, like, I've been beaten up to my core with everything that's happened. I look at her and I'm like, you would be the first one, but I will give it my all. I never, leave things unfinished, no. So she pauses, and in my head, I'm like, oh my God, she thinks I'm such a loser. Like she thinks I'm like this little girl that doesn't know anything, whatever. She looks at me, she's like, okay. Well, I guess we'll start somewhere. Let's do it. Then I have my second call. So have you done this already? Well, actually, I just started working with the former president. Like, no. All four became clients. Brand of a Leader was born, and that became, a big focus and big passion. But to, Guy's point, is because I just started putting myself out there. It wasn't, pre-planned, and then things started building and attracting, and that became the direction. So as I said, might be of zero value, but that's the story of how it all happened last summer, a year ago.
Amazing. Thank you.
I would go back to Leslie's point before about ageism, and Greg saying, it's your last 10 years. We're not plowing the fields anymore. What you do is brain work, and you can do brain work for decades to come. When I think about how long do I still have to work, how long do I still have to live, right? I'm 50, and I can't think of, wow, I only have, it's like, no, the next thing's going to be the next thing. And I would challenge you to just say, okay, can I remove the pressure of putting so much pressure on the fact that it's like the final choice I have for those 10 years, and lean on your skills, lean on your experience, lean on your value, go for something. And if it doesn't work out in 2-3 years, you'll still have many, many years and many, many challenges and many, many opportunities, because you bring value to the table. Trust yourself.
Words of wisdom. even for a 50-year-old. I'm 58. So still, no, good points. I mean, you don't have to, spend the rest of your career at one particular position. For sure, you could move on to try something new. Agreed. Thanks, Guy.
Yeah, and I think that I was saying this to my partner yesterday because I am with somebody who's 24 years older than I am. Yeah. Anyway, when I first met him, I thought he was 10 years younger. Not that it matters, but at any rate, so I get to be around a lot of people who are older than me, because all of my in-laws are in their 60s and 70s and 80s, and so I really, really resonate with what Leslie's saying about how ageism just isn't really part of the conversation enough in terms of, the inclusive landscape that I think that we all care about. I've seen it be ignored and overlooked by a lot of people my age and younger. And I'm 43. I'm not that young anymore. But one of the things that I find so fascinating is that everybody has the conversations are the same. At all the different decades. I think that if I spend time with my 40-year-old friends or 50-year-old friends or 60-year-old friends or 70-year-old friends or 80-year-old friends, the difference is that maybe the people who are older expect the conversation to be the same now, more, whereas the younger people don't. But I think we all continue to have those voices of self-doubt or, and I would say that it is kind of one of the things, and I again, it's what Marina was saying. I have no idea if what I'm saying is going to be of use to you or not. I think we all sort of work with what we're given in different ways and use different tools, but what's been really helpful for me is to remind myself that I'm not alone in that everybody, all ages, all backgrounds have these experiences and these thoughts. And also to do as much befriending of those thoughts as I can. So, for years, I just sort of try to push it away and now I'm just like, oh, I need a hug. Oh, come here, you, and give myself a little noogie, and, depending on the day, that's easier than others, but I think it's it's been a good practice, because I do think that leaning into love is not something that I was taught by the people around me and the mainstream culture, because I love talking about that. And I think it's something that we can learn, that I'm learning. It's not easy.
Excellent points.
Thanks for your
Kit.
question.
And something that's really fun to watch is like a lot of times we start our career, we get out of school and we fall into a job and we stay in the job because it's safe. Not many people want to take the risk of parachuting out of a job and trying something brand new. So a lot of times life happens and then you're out of a job. And then we try to realign people, especially with their personality types. And we find that some people are just doing the wrong job for such a long time. And it's so draining, always like compensating for your weaknesses and then not really using what strengths you have. So it's kind of fun to watch people, 40s, 50s, 60s, it doesn't matter. We have a lot of 60-year-olds that find a new career and they go, oh man, this is what I was meant to do. One of our PowerPoints, we have a slide, the one with the goldfish. I don't know if you've seen it, you probably have. It's a little goldfish in front of a tree. Something along the lines of, if you expect a goldfish to climb a tree, it's going to feel stupid its entire life kind of thing. And a lot of us were doing things we weren't meant to do. And then it doesn't matter what age, if you realign yourself and then all of a sudden you're doing something that's fun and something you're good at, it's really fun to watch.
Cool point, Leslie. I feel like you mentioned the parachute. I mean, I just feel like I'm the guy sitting at the door of the plane with the parachute and somebody's saying, jump, jump. And I'm just too terrified to do that. But I've seen, and I've watched other sessions in the Power Skills Summit this today, and it's just hearing about, just take that step and trust in the process. So I should begin trusting. Thank you.
I think that was a great question to end on. And Guy, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say that we also have to keep in mind that there's always a price to pay, right? There's a price to pay to be authentic, that certain people or certain situations are going to kick you in the face. And there's a price to pay to not be authentic or to not go with your feeling, right? So then you have to weigh it. Am I better off going for it, risking it? And it's not as easy as this is the answer. It's going to be your situation. When a young couple with children doesn't have the same flexibility as somebody older, and somebody just out of school with no obligation doesn't have the same situation as somebody who just bought a house, and you analyze it and you say, am I willing to pay the cost for my decision? But when we were talking about, do we give the advice of being authentic? I always tell people be authentic, but I always say afterwards, make sure you're willing to pay the price, or you're willing to live with the consequences or with the reality of your authenticism. I don't know, whatever. That one. Thank you.
That one. I think that's a wonderful line to end on. It was a great question to end on, and certainly a wonderful line to end on. I think a good summary of everything we talked about today. Bringing these 4 panelists together was magic, and I respect all of them immensely for reasons that I'm sure you experienced here today. And Valerie is going to close out, but I just did, and I thank you, all of you, for staying way over time, specifically the panelists. Thank you so much. And Marina did want to ask if she could talk about her session. Oh, she put it in the chat. Wonderful. Did you want to say a word or two, Marina, about that before we hand it over to Valerie for goodbye? A heartfelt thanks to all the panelists and to all the participants for their engagement and comments in the chat.
This was so much fun. Such an amazing group of panelists. So nice meeting you all. This was awesome. I'm giving a talk on Friday on the topic of personal branding, and really talking about magic and magical coincidences. Greg was chosen to facilitate it. How random. We've known each other for many years. So that's really exciting. So if you're interested in personal branding, just understanding what is personal branding is talked about so much these days. It's becoming a little bit of an overused concept. What is it? How do you start with it? What do you do? It's on Friday, and I'd love to see you all there.
Thank you so much, Marina. I encourage you all to join in on her personal branding masterclass. We forgot the masterclass at the end there. So it's definitely something that you should tune into. Thank you all to the panelists. Thank you. A lot of gems, a lot of wisdom. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing all of your stories. I know I learned a lot just by listening to all of you and some of the things that you've gone through, and how you've kind of been resilient through the end, and you continue to champion on, reinvent yourselves, explore what brings meaning to you and your life. It's very inspiring. So thank you all for sharing that. To our participants, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being part of the magic that is Power Skills. It wouldn't be possible without all of you. So thank you for tuning in. We hope to see you at more sessions. Following is a mental health panel talking about the importance of mental health. That starts at 6 p.m. So we hope that you'll join us for that. Thank you again. I see Guy.
One last little comment. Awesome. I'm sorry about that. I have to do the plug-in. Anyone, and it's not, I'm not pushing anyone on this, but anyone who can, these sessions are all free. They're all provided by the great team at CATS. If you go where we can register, there's a donate button at the top. If you feel like privileged that they've helped you, they've helped people you know, that they do such great work, go visit. I encourage you to.
I had no idea. I'll be looking for that. Thanks, Guy.
Thank you so much, Guy.
And again, it's no obligation to anyone. It's just, you guys do such great work. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. Really, Guy is, at universities when they give I forgot the name of it. When they don't really graduate from there, but they give you the honorary graduate.
Honorary degree.
Honorary degree. Thank you, Greg. I'm a little bit tired at the end of the day. Well, that's, people like Guy and Guy specifically are honorary members of CATS, and they always will be long after I'm gone. And we really appreciate your words and appreciate your participation. And Greg, I'm so happy to see you facilitating as well. So this is what the CATS community is all about. Thank you again for staying over time. It is our great pleasure to bring this to you. I see a lot of speakers too who will be speaking. So go ahead and put those in the chat. I see Tanya. I had seen some other speakers as well. They might not still be here. But if you want to-
Zania was there too.
Yeah, Xenia was there, and that was this morning.
Sorry.
So yeah, no problem. I make that mistake all the time. But Tanya, you can go ahead and put your session in. But thank you so much. This was, as echoed in the chat, so much fun. I really valued. I mean, thank God this is recorded, because there's so many quotes and gems in there that I want to revisit. So I hope to see you at other sessions, and have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. It
Thank
was great
you.
Thanks, Riz.
to connect.
Bye, everyone.